Welcome to Teraflora Studio, a place where imagination meets the rhythm of nature, where every curve of a root and shimmer of stone tells a quiet story. Here, we explore how gardens can become sanctuaries of peace, crafted not only by hands but also by heart. In this episode, we wander through landscapes that celebrate balance between the natural and the handmade, from the gentle twist of driftwood along mossy borders to the soft pastel stones tracing the edge of a blooming path. Each creation reminds us that beauty often hides in the simplest things. You will see how colors, textures, and shapes can breathe life into forgotten materials, reviving what was once old and turning it into something quietly extraordinary. This content has been thoughtfully composed and narrated. With the help of advanced AI technology, it allows us to visualize, imagine, and share new ideas that inspire creative harmony between people and nature. Every word and image is a celebration of possibility, a bridge between art and the living earth. So, take a slow breath, let your eyes wander, and let your thoughts rest among the gardens we create together. If you find peace and inspiration here, we warmly invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to Teraflora Studio and be part of a growing circle of dreamers who see the world not just as it is, but as it could bloom to be. There's something timeless about the way roots embrace the earth, a quiet conversation between life, stone, and soil. In this garden, the border isn't built, it's grown. Twisted roots, once hidden beneath the ground, are given a new story. They curve gently around smooth river stones, each turn shaped not by human hands, but by the rhythm of nature's patience. When you walk along the edge of this path, you can almost feel the pulse of the garden. The roots weave like threads of memory, holding the past in their grain. Each stone resting beside them catches a glint of morning dew, reflecting colors from nearby marigolds and asters, gold, violet, and soft amber. The border hums quietly with life, like an old song played through wind and time. Here, beauty doesn't shout, it breathes. The twisted roots aren't perfect, but they belong sculpted by weather and age, painted by moss, touched by light. They remind us that nature's artistry isn't about symmetry, it's about story. It's about how something once forgotten can return, reimagined, to cradle blossoms and bloom. As the sun drifts across the sky, shadows ripple across the roots. They stretch and twist, dancing with the breeze that carries the scent of fresh soil and the soft hum of bees. You can almost hear the garden whisper. That true design doesn't always come from tools or plans, but from listening to the language of earth and letting it guide your hands. The twisted root border becomes more than a boundary. It's a bridge between the seen and the unseen, between structure and soul. It's a reminder that art, when grounded in nature, will always find its way home. And when the last light of evening rests upon these roots, they glow faintly, like veins of memory connecting every petal, every stone, every breath of the garden that lives and dreams beyond the edges we build. Every garden tells its story through the paths we walk, and sometimes, the most beautiful paths are those lined not with perfect symmetry, but with quiet patience, stones resting under a soft quilt of moss. In the mossy stone path edges, nature becomes the artist. Each rock, softened by time, is brushed with green velvet, its surface cool beneath the fingers, alive with tiny whispers of moisture and light. The moss climbs gently, never rushing, turning something ordinary into a living frame that breathes with the earth itself. Morning arrives softly here. Dew settles like pearls on the moss, catching the sun's first rays. Between the stones, asters lean toward the light, and Japanese anemones sway as if greeting the day. There's a scent of fresh soil, and in that scent, a reminder of how beauty often hides in quiet places. This border doesn't demand attention, it earns it. It blurs the line between structure and wilderness, allowing the garden to look both cared for and free. The moss, with its soft resilience, teaches us that gentleness can still define strength, that even in damp shade, life finds color and purpose. As you walk along this path, your steps slow without command. The ground beneath feels forgiving, familiar, like the memory of an old friend. Each stone tells of seasons past of rain, wind, and sun that shaped its form. Together, they hold the edges of the garden not as a wall, but as a promise, a soft reminder that even the smallest borders can hold the heart of something vast. By evening, when the light turns golden and shadows stretch long, the moss glows faintly, reflecting the warmth of the day. Birds settle on nearby branches, and for a moment, the garden feels complete. A living canvas where stone and moss merge not to divide, but to connect. And you realize, quietly, that sometimes the truest art in the garden isn't what we build, but what we allow to grow. Color, when whispered through nature, becomes more than decoration. It becomes emotion. The painted pebble curves are not simply borders. They are quiet strokes of joy that trace the heart of the garden. Each pebble begins as a forgotten stone, picked from the soil with dust still clinging to its surface. In careful hands, it meets a brush, a palette of pastel dreams, mint green, coral, soft lilac, pale sand. And once the paint dries under sunlight, the stones no longer look cold or heavy. They glow with a sense of renewal, like memories rewritten in color. When placed along the garden's edge, these pebbles do more than separate flowers from soil. They guide the gaze, like a melody leading you through rhythm and rest. Curving gently between blossoms of marigold and chrysanthemum, the colors seem to speak with the petals, a dialogue between human touch and the pulse of the earth. There's a simple pleasure in walking beside them. The path feels softer, more personal, as though each pebble remembers the moment it was chosen, painted, and laid down with care. Sunlight brings them to life, shifting their tones with every passing hour, from morning's blush to afternoon's glow, and into evening's quiet amber. This is not perfection, it's poetry, a gentle rebellion against dullness, a reminder that gardens, like people, bloom best when touched by playfulness. The painted pebble curves invite not precision, but feeling. They welcome mismatched shades, uneven lines, and natural flow. Because beauty, here, is alive. It bends, breathes, and grows with every season. And when the day ends, as the last light fades, through the asters and sedum along the border, the painted stones hold the warmth of the sun, a soft afterglow of effort and imagination, a message left behind for whoever walks the path next. That art doesn't always hang on walls. Sometimes, it waits quietly at your feet, painted on the edges of the garden that you call home. In every garden, there are places where nature remembers its touch. The root-weave flower bed frames are born from that memory, a meeting between the strength of old roots and the softness of living blossoms. Once, these roots anchored mighty trees. They held the ground through storms, through years of silence. Now, they rise again, not to dominate the earth but to cradle it. Each curve and twist is shaped by time, patient, deliberate, graceful. They form circles around flowers like gentle arms holding life. Within these root-woven frames, asters bloom like small stars, and marigolds spill gold across the soil. The roots, rough and silent, make the colors glow brighter, as if every scar of age adds depth to their beauty. Here, structure and nature no longer compete. They collaborate. The roots give form, the flowers give soul. In morning light, the frames catch dew like silver threads. By noon, they glow with warmth, and by dusk, they fade into silhouettes that hum with the last breath of sun. It's a living art, not planned by design, but guided by intuition and the language of the earth itself. There's a quiet philosophy woven here, that something old, even gnarled and imperfect, can find new purpose without losing its past. That beauty doesn't fade when function changes. It deepens. The root-weave flower bed frames remind us that gardens are not just made of plants. They're made of patience, memory, and renewal. When the evening breeze moves through the petals, the roots seem to whisper, a low, wooden hum that speaks of endurance and belonging. And as shadows stretch long across the yard, you can feel that this frame, once just fallen wood, has become something more. A cradle for color, a boundary for dreams, a quiet testament to how nature, when left to speak, can still tell the most beautiful stories without words. Between the strength of metal and the stillness of stone lies a quiet conversation, a balance of contrast, a harmony of opposites. The iron and stone harmony edges are born from that union, where the industrial meets the organic, and the rigid learns to breathe beside the living. Each piece of reclaimed iron once carried weight and purpose. It might have framed a gate, held a fence, or weathered years of sun and rain. Now, repainted in soft tones of sage and bronze, it curves with newfound gentleness along stones that have waited for centuries. Together they form a border, not harsh or mechanical, but graceful in its deliberate imperfection. Under the touch of daylight, the metals shimmer faintly. Their edges meet the stones like old friends, trading warmth and silence. Marigolds lean against them, unafraid of contrast. Sedum creeps between the gaps, softening every line. It's a garden that feels both grounded and awake, as though time itself chose to rest here for a while. There's beauty in this contradiction, that something once forged by fire can now hold space for flowers and color. It reminds us that art doesn't always need to erase the past. Sometimes it just needs to repaint it. Rust becomes character, and strength becomes calm. When evening light bends low, the iron glows deep amber, while the stones reflect cool silver. Together, they sing a duet of color, a conversation between warmth and stillness. The border hums quietly, as if alive, shaping not only the garden but the feeling it leaves behind. Walking along this edge, you sense balance, not forced, but found. The iron and stone harmony edges teach a simple truth, that beauty thrives where contrast meets understanding. And in that meeting, the garden gains something far greater than form. It gains soul. Terracotta has always held the warmth of human hands. It was shaped from earth, baked by fire, and carried through time. Each crack, each stain, a quiet memory of use and care. The vintage terracotta line honors that legacy, turning what was once forgotten into a gentle frame for new life. In this garden, the past doesn't fade. It blooms. Old pots, once chipped and cast aside, now lie along the edge of flowers, half buried like relics rediscovered. Their soft peach and ivory tones blend with soil and sun, forming a line that feels both accidental and intentional, as if the earth itself arranged them for beauty. The morning light finds their surface easily. It travels across every curve and imperfection, illuminating tiny mosses that cling to cracks, and small asters that lean close as if to listen. There's something comforting in their warmth, not polished, not perfect, but honest. Between each terracotta piece, marigolds rise like golden laughter, their colors deepening the story of clay and life. When the breeze moves, petals touch the old earthen walls, and for a moment, you can almost hear the soft hum of time, the meeting of yesterday's craft and today's bloom. This edging doesn't try to impress. It whispers. It reminds us that the beauty of reuse lies not in hiding age, but in embracing it. That renewal doesn't mean replacing, but rediscovering what already exists. By afternoon, as sunlight turns amber, the terracotta glows with a quiet fire of its own, a warmth that needs no polish, no perfection. It frames the flowers with humble grace, each piece of clay a reminder that what was once ordinary can become extraordinary with a change of purpose. The vintage terracotta line stands as a living testament to renewal, proof that even the simplest materials, when loved and seen with intention, can hold the soul of a garden, not as decoration, but as a story the earth continues to tell through color, form, and time. Every piece of driftwood carries the memory of the sea, its edges smoothed by waves, its color faded by sunlight. The color-washed driftwood border brings that memory ashore, turning fragments of the ocean's story into frames of quiet beauty. Once adrift and forgotten, these wood pieces now find belonging. They are gathered, washed clean, and brushed softly with color: mint, coral, sand, and pale blue. tones that speak of calm waters and morning skies. The paint doesn't hide their age. It celebrates it, allowing the veins of the grain to tell their story through every curve and crack. Placed along the garden's edge, the driftwood bends with the shape of the earth, forming a natural, flowing border between blossoms and grass. Marigolds spill gold over the edges. Asters lift their soft violet heads, and the air fills with the scent of life meeting memory. There's something almost musical in the way color and texture blend here. The brushstrokes of pastel hues catch the light differently each hour, bright and playful at noon, gentle and nostalgic by sunset. It's a harmony only nature could compose, but one the human hand helps reveal. You can imagine the waves that once shaped these pieces, and how, even after being carried away, they return to cradle life again. The garden becomes an echo of renewal, proof that beauty doesn't end when purpose changes. It simply shifts direction. When twilight arrives, the soft tones of the driftwood seem to breathe warmth. They glow faintly against the evening sky, their colors muted but alive, framing the flowers like gentle whispers of the sea. There's no sharp edge here, only rhythm, flow, and grace. The color-washed driftwood border isn't about perfection or precision. It's about remembering, about finding peace in the weathered, and letting color revive what time has softened. A gentle reminder that even what drifts away can return, renewed, reimagined, and more beautiful than before. Sometimes, beauty begins where strength softens. The reclaimed metal curve carries this truth, a quiet transformation from industrial to organic, from rigid to graceful, from discarded to desired. Each curve of metal once belonged to something functional, a gate, a barrel, perhaps even a piece of forgotten machinery. Now, reborn through color and care, it bends not to contain, but to embrace. Painted in tones of emerald and dusty bronze, its surface catches the sunlight like aged jewelry, glowing without arrogance, refined through renewal. The curve guides the eye gently, not demanding symmetry, but offering flow, a visual rhythm between flower beds and pathways. Marigolds bloom in waves of gold beside it, sedum spreads like a soft cushion of green, and asters lift purple crowns into the open air. The metal stands quietly among them, strong enough to hold form, soft enough to belong. In its presence, the garden feels both grounded and modern, a meeting point of art and endurance. The contrast of metal against petal, of painted surface against living soil, creates a poetry that only reclaimed materials can tell. Every curve is a gesture of resilience, a reminder that design need not erase the past. To create something beautiful, when dusk arrives, light schemes across the smooth edges, casting shadows that ripple like waves. The metal gleams softly, echoing the last warmth of the sun. There is no harshness here, only balance, only calm. To walk beside these borders is to witness a story of renewal written in color and curve. It's the art of taking what once was forgotten and giving it purpose without disguise. The reclaimed metal curve reminds us that even the strongest materials find their grace when guided by intention. That beauty, in its truest form, is not born of perfection, but of transformation. And as the garden quiets into evening, the metal holds the day's light one moment longer, a soft shimmer of strength made gentle, a curve that captures the soul of change. There are corners of a garden where silence feels alive, where nature leaves her sculptures not in stone, but in wood, curve, and time. The wild root sculpture corners celebrate that quiet artistry, a meeting of form and freedom carved by the earth itself. These roots, once deep beneath the soil, held trees steady against wind and storm. Now, unearthed and reborn, they stand proudly at the edges of life once more, not as anchors, but as storytellers. Their twisted lines rise and fall like frozen waves. Their hollows and bends cradle small patches of moss, their surfaces polished by rain and memory. Placed in the corners of the garden, they command no perfection, only presence. Each shape feels spontaneous, yet entirely at home. Asters bloom near their base, marigolds lean toward their shade, and the ground beneath hums softly with renewal. It is as if the roots themselves breathe, quietly, rhythmically, as part of the landscape they once held. Morning light touches them first, painting highlights across bark and curve. By afternoon, the golden hour makes them glow, their silhouettes long and soft against the flower beds. They seem to grow again, not through soil, but through meaning. In these corners, the boundary between sculpture and nature disappears. The roots are not ornaments, they are conversations. Between growth and decay, between strength and surrender, between what was and what still is. To stand before them is to feel time slowed. You sense the years that shaped each twist, the patience of weather, the artistry of age. Nothing here is wasted. Every mark, every knot, every shadow belongs. As evening settles and the air cools, the roots darken to deep bronze, a natural frame for the colors still blooming beside them. They hold no symmetry, yet they hold peace. And as the garden drifts toward quiet, the wild root sculpture corners remain, eternal witnesses of resilience, of how even what is uprooted can still stand with grace and purpose, telling stories that only the earth remembers. In a garden shaped by color and calm, order doesn't need to silence freedom, it only needs to guide it. The stone blossom dividers embody this grace, standing quietly between blossoms, holding beauty in place without restraint. Each stone rests upright, half in the soil, half reaching toward the light. Their smooth surfaces gleam softly, painted in gentle tones of beige and gray, like whispers of the earth itself. No two stones are alike, yet together they form a rhythm, a subtle melody of balance between bloom and ground. As marigolds burst in gold and asters sway in violet, the stones remain still, steady witnesses to the garden's daily unfolding. They frame life without confining it, giving each patch of color its own space to breathe. Here, structure and softness meet halfway, each enhancing the other's quiet strength. In morning light, the dividers glow pale and cool. By afternoon, they warm under the sun's touch. Moss gathers at their feet, tracing green lace across the base of stone. Petals fall gently against them, as if in gratitude for the boundaries that let them flourish. This is not a border of separation. It's a dialogue between stillness and motion, between the enduring and the ephemeral. The stone blossom dividers don't demand attention. They offer harmony, reminding us that beauty thrives, not in competition, but in coexistence. When twilight comes, the stones cast long, graceful shadows, softly dividing color and silence. The garden feels composed, yet alive, a painting that breathes. And as the last light fades, each stone catches a final glint of gold, standing as quiet guardians of order and peace. In their calm presence, you sense the truth every garden knows, that even the simplest shapes, when placed with care and heart, can transform space into sanctuary. The stone blossom dividers are not barriers, they are the punctuation marks in the poetry of growing things. Light doesn't need to be harsh to be seen. Sometimes it glows quietly, like memory captured in glass. The glass pebble glow line brings this soft illumination to the garden, turning each border into a stream of gentle light. Each pebble, smooth and clear, carries its own hue, a hint of emerald, a whisper of gold, a breath of ocean blue. When placed along the path, they catch the light of day and return it at dusk like scattered stars resting close to the ground. They are not electric. Their glow is born of reflection, of sunlight stored and given back with kindness. The border winds like a ribbon between blossoms, guiding the eyes and the feet in equal measure. Marigolds flicker above in their own golden fire, asters open wide in violet calm, and the glass beneath them mirrors both colors in silence. The effect is simple but magnetic, a line that seems to breathe with the rhythm of evening air. There's a sense of wonder here, the kind that feels both human and natural. It's as if the garden has found a way to hold light, without needing flame or wire, only presence and placement. The glass pebbles rest easily on the soil, their smoothness meeting earth's texture, their glow meeting the quiet of night. As the sun sets, the garden shifts into a softer voice. The pebbles gleam faintly, picking up every ounce of remaining light and scattering it like a secret shared between dusk and dawn. They turn the pathway into poetry, not a road to walk, but one to feel. This border doesn't just define space. It defines atmosphere. It transforms boundaries into invitation. It teaches that illumination doesn't always come from power, but from patience, placement, and love for subtle things. When you look upon the glass pebble glow line, you don't see decoration. You see light learning to rest. And in that rest, you find the quiet heart of beauty itself, soft, enduring, and alive under every step you take through the garden. There is a kind of beauty that only time can teach, the beauty of things once useful, now reborn as art. The rustic iron flower bed rings carry that wisdom in their shape, each circle a story of endurance, each curve a whisper of renewal. Once, these rings were forged for strength, to bind, to hold, to serve. Years have softened their edges, but not their purpose. Now they find themselves among flowers, no longer burdened by function, but blessed by meaning, painted anew in tones of sage and rose. They gleam faintly in the morning light, their old scars shining like gentle memories. Around them, chrysanthemums open with quiet confidence, and marigolds dance in the mild wind. The iron, once cold, now feels alive, its roundness mirroring the sun, its patina blending with soil and bloom. There's poetry in this partnership. Iron, born of fire, standing among petals, fragile yet fierce. Together they speak of harmony, a balance between endurance and grace. The circles don't confine the flowers. They celebrate them, turning each cluster into a vignette of color and calm. As the day matures, the rings catch shifting light, first gold, then amber, then soft gray. They echo the rhythm of time itself, marking not just the boundary of a bed, but the pulse of a living garden. By dusk, shadows curl gently through the rings. Their outlines melt into the soil, leaving only suggestion, not barrier, but belonging. And in that moment, the garden feels whole. The rustic iron flower bed rings remind us that creation doesn't always begin from newness. Sometimes it rises from what has endured, what has been weathered but never broken. They stand as circular testaments to the idea that strength, when softened by purpose, can become beautiful again. In their stillness, they offer not symmetry but serenity, a quiet promise that even the hardest materials can hold the gentlest dreams. Some gardens invite you to walk straight ahead. Others ask you to slow down, to follow the curve of thought and soil. The root and rock spiral garden is one of those places, where design becomes meditation and form becomes flow. It begins with a single circle drawn upon the earth. Then come the roots, old, weathered, patient, laid gently beside smooth river stones, their curves meeting in a quiet dance of texture and rhythm. Together, they spiral inward, as if nature herself were sketching a path toward calm. At the center, marigolds burst in golden flame, while sedum spreads like green velvet along the edge. Each layer feels alive, a blend of strength and softness, earth and endurance, root and rock. It is not symmetry that makes it beautiful. It is the story it tells with each turn. When sunlight drifts across the spiral, shadows curl along the lines like threads of time. The stones gleam softly, their surfaces catching the warmth of day, while the roots darken, deep and grounded. The balance between them feels ancient, as if the earth remembers this pattern from another life. Walking around it, you feel your breath match its rhythm. There is no rush here, only movement that leads you inward, towards stillness at the core. It's a reminder that gardens are not only for the eyes, but for the soul's gentle wandering. By evening, the spiral glows beneath the low sun, the marigolds reflecting light like small suns of their own. The roots whisper in shadow, and the stones rest, content in their circular embrace. It's more than design, it's reflection, a symbol of growth that never truly ends, only turns inward to begin again. The root and rock spiral garden is not built to impress. It's built to remind that harmony is found not in straight lines, but in the slow, steady curve of patience, creation, and care. In nature, harmony isn't planned, it's found. The driftwood and moss harmony edge captures that truth, where two opposites meet, wood and softness, age and renewal, to form something that feels effortlessly alive. Each driftwood piece carries the story of a journey. It has floated across tides, touched sunlight and storm alike, and come to rest upon the soil of a garden that welcomes its wear. Its shape is imperfect, sculpted not by hand but by time. Upon its rough skin, moss begins to grow, a quiet act of healing that turns weathering into wonder. Together, they create a border that breathes. The gray of the driftwood meets the green of the moss, and between them flows a dialogue of textures. Cool, warm, ancient, fresh. It's not decoration. It's a conversation between endurance and tenderness. Asters rise nearby. Marigolds burn gold against the muted tones, and the air smells faintly of rain and earth. In morning light, the moss glows softly, its tiny fronds glistening with dew. By noon, the wood casts gentle shadows across the ground, its curves echoing the natural rhythm of the garden's flow. There is no sharpness here, only rest, only grace. It's as though the garden exhales, its edges no longer boundaries, but invitations. As the day fades, the moss deepens in color, absorbing the cool of twilight. The driftwood darkens to bronze gray, its grain catching the last whispers of sunlight. You can almost feel it, the slow, eternal breath of the earth. Steady, forgiving, patient. The driftwood and moss harmony edge teaches quietly that beauty doesn't always bloom. Sometimes, it settles. That life continues not by replacing the old, but by growing upon it, gently, respectfully, naturally. It reminds us that gardens, like people, are at their most peaceful when they stop striving to be perfect and simply let themselves be whole. In that stillness, you understand. This is not design. This is the art of coexistence, the quiet poetry of wood and moss, whispering the language of balance to the earth. Every step through the garden can be a walk through color, a quiet journey painted by hand and heart. The painted rock patchwork path invites that walk, where stones become stories and footsteps trace joy into the earth. Each rock begins as something ordinary, flat and forgotten, lying beneath the grass or beside the fence. Then a brush meets its surface, soft, slow, deliberate, and color begins to bloom. Lavender for calm, sage for balance, coral for warmth, cream for light that never fades. The stones are painted not to match, but to belong. Their mismatched hues coming together like a melody of peace. Laid side by side, they form a path that curves naturally, weaving through beds of marigolds and asters. The flowers mirror the tones above them, and the garden feels alive in layers. A conversation of petals and pigment, earth and imagination. When morning light arrives, the pastel tones glow gently, reflecting dew like tiny mirrors of dawn. By midday, the colors brighten under the sun, turning the path into a ribbon of cheerful warmth. And as evening falls, the rocks deepen to softer shades, their surfaces catching the gold of twilight. It is beauty that changes, breathes, and never repeats. There's no perfection here, only play, a celebration of imperfection that feels deeply human. The brush marks, the uneven shades, the faint smudge of soil along the edge, they all belong. They tell of effort, joy, and the gentle art of turning the simplest materials into something meaningful. Walking this path, you don't just move through the garden, you participate in it. Each step reminds you that creativity doesn't always need grandeur. Sometimes it just needs color, courage, and care. The painted rock patchwork path stands as a reminder that beauty is not found in control, but in connection, where art meets soil and imagination touches earth. By nightfall, when the world grows quiet, the colors rest beneath the moonlight, soft, tender, and true. And in their silence, they hold what every garden holds, the quiet heartbeat of human hands, woven into the living canvas of nature. As the light begins to soften and the garden settles into quiet, we are reminded that beauty often blooms in stillness. Every root, every stone, every humble curve of the earth holds a lesson about patience and renewal. Through these creations, we see not just decoration, but a dialogue between time and tenderness, between the human touch and the heart of nature itself. Here at Teraflora Studio, we believe that a garden is more than soil and color. It is a mirror of how we live, how we care, and how we choose to see the world around us. Each idea we share is meant to inspire peace, to invite you to slow down, and to remind you that harmony begins in simple, mindful acts. We hope these moments have stirred something gentle within you, a spark of creativity, a breath of calm, a desire to look at your own space with new eyes. Let the colors linger in your thoughts. Let the textures find their echo in your imagination, and carry that stillness with you beyond the screen. If this journey has touched your heart, we warmly invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to Teraflora Studio and join a growing community that finds wonder in every leaf, every petal, every handmade dream. Together, we'll continue to explore the quiet beauty of nature and design, one peaceful idea at a time.